Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the afternoon sessions. We now have Nikhil Arora from GoDaddy. He will be taking the session on careers in marketing, branding, and communication. Siddharth, could you switch to, thank you. So Nikhil has spent 20 years, he has 20 years of experience in strategy, operations, and business development. And his previous 10 years in India include being country head for WeWork and Intuit. He also has worked for Laureate Education, ADP, Delphi Corporation, and CBS Television Group. He has a strong global experience in scaling startups to sustainable phases in the US, Europe, and Asia. He's incubated and advisor to leading fintech and education groups in Asia, edtech, skills development, and technology startups. He's managed over 15 M&A transactions, 20 competitive market entry, product launch, and penetration projects in B2C and B2B. He's also a very prominent speaker at various entrepreneurial forums, institutes, and universities, and we are very excited to have him speak with us today. So Nikhil, it's over to you.
All right. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me. And you know, I see, I think a good quorum of students out there. So what I'm going to try to do is, you know, I'll just kind of give a little bit of 2 minutes of my journey line, a little more practically than a PowerPoint slide. I think then get into talking about just what kind of skills, soft and hard, are needed in making a career out of marketing, brand communication, and then actually get into what does marketing, brand communication mean, and try to make most of the session about practical examples. So you know, out of every element which is part of marketing, brand, and communication, I'll try to share an example and just kind of give you a real-time view of what goes into those, and I think that will get you a better flavor of you know, of a career. In the meanwhile, also I know the chat platform is on, and if there are any specific places or questions or you know, just things you want to ask or ask me to go a little more deeper, I'm happy to do that, right? So let me kind of share my screen and see if you guys can you guys can see my screen? Can you guys?
Yes, we can see it. Yeah.
All right. So you know, there are certain skills which are regardless of whether you go into marketing, branding, finance, operations, consulting, financial services, you know, which are the basic skills, right? And those I have not kind of put out in the slide, but I'll just call them out, right? Like to succeed in today's environment, right? You want to be able to be a team player, first of all, because remember, every career you take, no matter what stream you go in, you have to work with people. And you know, so learning that skill, and you have a great opportunity as you do it in college. Make sure you're spending enough time there, because no matter what job you do in your life, you will be working with people, and being able to work with people, some you get along with and some you don't get along with. But you know, that's more of an art than a science, you know, working that model of being able to figure out how to get best out of people. So that's, you know, that's number one. And you know, though I don't have this on the slide, and I'll come back to the slide per se. In fact, let me kind of go out of it so it doesn't distract you. I think the second one is really about having the analytical skills. You know, in today's world, data and analytics and you know, ISBF is quite deep into it. No matter what job you're doing, you know, data is the new gold, as they say. And so ability to process data, make sense of data, is very important. And the third one is being able to, I would say, experiment faster. No matter whether we work in big company or small company, and be able to translate your academic learning to practical, right? And what I mean is that you will learn a lot of things in school and in college about about different topics, but then how do you practically kind of translate that into understanding, and which is through internships and so on. And I'll share a few examples on that, right? So I mean, I think if you have to take one takeaway from this, learn to work with people, because you'll always be working with people. So teamwork is the number one factor every company looks for today, when they're hiring, or when they're selecting you, even like when you apply to colleges. That's the number one thing people look at, because you're going to work with people, right? In terms of marketing, branding, and communication, right? I've listed a few critical skills here, right? And the first one is about 4 Ps, which is, you have to have a passion for the function you want to make a career around. There has to be a purpose in it. You need to how to kind of position and package. And let me explain that a bit, right? When you think of marketing, there's a lot of creativity and imagination, which is my second bullet. So in when you combine your passion with creativity and imagination, you get great products, right? So marketing is when you look at a brand, and when you think of a brand, right, a brand is something you feel, touch, experience, and listen. So when you think of different brands, right, ours, GoDaddy, you got Coca-Cola, you got Pepsi, you got Airtel. I mean, you look at different brands, right? Immediately when you hear a name, certain things come to your mind. Or when you watch a brand logo, something comes to your mind, right? So brand really is about what it is trying to tell to you, who they are, and basically create an immediate connect. So having that passion, to kind of be able to create that from the business side, right? So if you were given a job in marketing, your number one thing would be, how do I create that brand presence and brand recall? And you can apply to your practical example, right? I mean, when you think of something, you immediately have a recall. When you see an ad, you can immediately say, okay, this was that ad of that company. So that's really about branding. When you look at a logo, you are able to say, oh yeah, I recognize this logo. I mean, there are companies who are just recognized by their logo and not even their name, because people can associate with that. So having that passion, being able to do that, right, that the creative side, your left hand side of the brain, and be able to think really creatively in a very, I would say, engaging way to kind of create that product, right? And then a purpose is really about the mission of the company, right? So you want to know, like, for example, let's say example of GoDaddy, right? We want to we sell products for companies to come online. So that's our mission. So how do we take that and connect with the purpose of the customer? And I'll share some examples on that. And position and packaging is all about marketing, right? How it is received by you, TV ads, print ads, social ads, radio ads, right? That's all about positioning and packaging. The third one, influencing and negotiation skills. I think it's again not specific to this, but it's very much important, because the job of marketing, branding, communication, you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders. And when I walk into the slide of a day, a day in a life of a branding or marketing manager, you'll see what I mean. But you work with your different departments within a company, right? You work with finance, you work with sales, you work with operations, you work with outside agencies, you work with media agencies, you will work with public relations agency, you will work with ad agencies, and you will work with different other companies with whom you partner, right? So being able to influence and negotiate all these kind of agencies you work with is going to be important. And I will explain more about these, but also please put a question in the chat if you don't know what a media agency does or what a PR agency does, because it's important that you can at least get a basic understanding. And then communication, public speaking, and business sense, those go without like that. They're common for everyone, but in this profession, right, in the marketing branding profession, you're all about communication, you're all about public speaking. So very important to hone those skills, and there is no better time to kind of hone it while you're in school and when you get into college. So this is like typically what a day in a life of a marketing branding communication looks like. And then I'll give you examples of all of these, right? So normally what happens is, you walk in the morning, whether it's 8 a.m., 9 a.m. and whatever, right? I mean, the first thing is you probably go through your calendar, go through your email, catch up on communication on the previous day and, see your meetings, right? The second thing normally happens is review of the pulse of the brand. And what is pulse of the brand, right? You think about every morning, you hear these stories on social media that somebody did something good or somebody did something bad, right? And brand is of a company, brand could be of an individual, brand could be of a celebrity, right? All the, like for example, sports, Bollywood, all these are celebrities. And nowadays you hear a lot of good and bad stuff, right? They're going through. So the first thing to see is, what is the pulse of your brand? Because that is the most important metric, because a brand is measured by the brand awareness it has in the market and how good is that brand awareness. Is it good or bad, right? So for example, in GoDaddy, we say our brand awareness is more than 80%, which means we've done a lot of work in the past to be able to people to know, I know GoDaddy, right? And so that's all the work of branding. But then, oh, GoDaddy is a great company, or GoDaddy is not that great company, right? That is the pulse, right? And every day nowadays in social media, because people talk real time, and years before, brand was a one-way communication where I would put out a message of a brand, and there would be no kind of message coming back. Now with social media, every day people post. Like for me, for example, right? I mean, I get hundreds of messages on my LinkedIn or Instagram about good and bad things about the brand, right? And so uh, getting that pulse of the brand is very important, because that's where, if you're a brand manager or marketing manager, that's where your world starts from. That, hey, is my brand in good shape and is resonating the way it should be, right? So that's kind of the first thing you would do in a day of life. Then you get into your weekly marketing meeting with your team members and assess performance. And performance is essentially, hey, I put all these ads out, whether I put on TV or radio or whether I put on social media, how are you measuring success for those ads, right? Because there's money which company spends in these ads. So how do you measure success, right? And there are different measures of success, but these marketing meetings are all about those performance metrics, right? I mean, ultimately, all of them lead to more revenue, but some of them are not directly revenue generators, but ultimately, it's a funnel, right? That you build a great brand, it'll get you more people to buy your product, and then you make more money, right? Kind of stuff. So the weekly marketing meeting are mostly about performance. And so it's more data driven, and some is, a little bit qualitative. Third kind of meeting a typical marketing manager would have is market research, right? So you always have to do market research in this profession. And what is market research? Market research is all about, you want to find out how the customer or consumer is changing, right? Think about yourself. If you like certain music a few years ago, you don't like it anymore. If you liked a certain brand of clothing a few years ago, you may not like it anymore. Or you like a certain brand of clothing, but you want a different, I would say, version of the, of that clothing. So the job of the market research is always to have an understanding of how the customer is changing or is staying consistent. So you can now change your products or enhance your product, right? Because in today's world, consumer preferences are changing a lot, right? You may be wearing Zara clothes yesterday, and today you want to wear, something else, right? And so you need to understand as a marketing manager to be able to have that pulse. And the market research is done in 2-3 different ways, right? One is you do these surveys, right? You send these surveys. All of you would be getting surveys even now in school on some things, right? So you send a survey out to a sample of, and sample needs to be large enough so you can be confident that it's representing the result. So there's survey, there's phone calls. People do market research on social media now. There's mystery calling, and mystery calling is that, sometimes I do it, like I would call my own customer care team at GoDaddy and pretend to be a customer and go through the process of purchasing a domain or a website and see how they perform. That's market research for me, because I'm finding out that how is the purchase flow for my customer going on, right? So mystery shopping is a very common one where you pretend to be a customer, uh, but you're doing like, doing it for the reason of research, right? So from survey to phone calls to social media to mystery shopping, these are some of the things research. So research is also a lot about data. So there's, you collect data, you also collect comments. So it's quantitative, qualitative, and you kind of put that all together. And, so a lot of time when you see these white papers or these articles which are written, right, they are based on market research. Next thing is about, creative brief, which is about building the campaign, right? Building the brand. So you work with creative agencies, and there are a lot of creative agencies around where, what do you do, right? You have a concept of, hey, this is how I want to put my brand out there. It could be a TV commercial, it could be a radio commercial, it could be a display ad, or it could be combination of all. But this, the biggest thing there is kind of to say that you want to, you like, for example, GoDaddy puts out the ads in a very funny way, and I'll show you example later, right? Because we want our brand to be light, not to be heavy, not to be serious, in a fun way. We want to engage with more younger audience, and people feel, yeah, okay, this is, I can understand what they're talking. We also want to put out our message to tier 2, tier 3 cities, where people are not, the way they speak, the way they understand is very different than way we do. So, so the Hindi language also is very differently spoken. The characters in their mind are very differently spoken. So I'll actually walk you through a real example of how we develop that. Then you do a media planning session, which is really about, buying, like, I want to buy TV time, I want to buy radio time, I want to buy page 3 of this newspaper, I want to buy this page of a magazine, I want to kind of, put out an ad on Facebook and so on, right? So that's all about media planning. So that's all about, think of buying media time. And that's, again, the negotiation skill comes in. But for each month, you buy in advance, right? So for each month, you would buy that. Next one is about PR and communication. So public relation is more about external. So every time you see an article out there in a magazine, a newspaper, or somebody talks about a brand, that's all about public relations. And then communication is more about internal also and external. Internal is with your employees, because your employees also have to touch the brand the same way as you, as a customer, do, right? Because if employees don't feel the love for the brand, the customers will never do. And the last thing is, IMC planning, which is the integrated marketing planning, which is everything on the top. IMC is the motherhood of, all the marketing. It means integrated is, kind of, you can understand the word. So it brings together brand, creative, market research, media planning, and PR all together, and it's the end product you put out. So this is like a typical, kind of a day. And I will jump into the examples, but before I do that, anybody has any questions? I don't see the chat, but please feel free to ask any questions on any of the words I've used as well, because I understand that, some of these would be new to some of you and may not be new to some of you. So please don't feel shy. I don't know, since I'm on full screen, I don't see the chat. Sonia, I don't know if there's any questions.
Not as yet, Nikhil, but maybe you could just explain a little bit about the agency and how GoDaddy uses the agencies for the marketing and branding, perhaps.
Yeah, so, agency, think of agency, all the agency is a combination of creative, like, you see these, the film directors are also as part of the agency, so when you make a theme, and you know what, let me play this for you. I think, and then I'll explain you what it is. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of integrated marketing campaign. These are GoDaddy ones. And this is essentially our way of putting our brand out there, communicating with tier 2, tier 3 cities. I will first play and then explain to you, because I've explained to you before, then I would want to not kind of, cloud your interpretation. When I do that, I guess, would my volume be audible just to the ISBF team?
Nikhil, if you when you click share screen, actually you've already shared screen, but if you could just click on share screen again, and there'll be a pop-up box. There should be a little checkbox for share computer sound towards the bottom left. If you check that, then we'll be able to hear it as well.
Okay. Is it on the shared screen? Because mine go automatic, Chirag. So when I press on share screen, it says one participant at a time, multiple participants, or advanced sharing options.
I think you're probably clicking on that little arrow on the top right of share screen. If you just click on the main button, that should open up a pop-up box.
Yeah.
And you'll have share computer sound on the bottom left as a checkbox.
Sorry, let me. So share, yeah, got it. Okay, all right. And I'll optimize screen for video clip probably. All right. So let's get into the fun stuff here. So let me play this first one, guys.
बिजनेस भाई मेरी वेडिंग फोटोग्राफी नहीं चल रही है।
लोग शादी नहीं कर रहे क्या प्रजापति?
हर गली में एक शादी फोटोग्राफर है। कंपटीशन बहुत बढ़ गया है भाई।
जूम लगा अपने दिमाग में, अब दिख रहा है?
ओ डैडी,
Nikhil, we can't see the actual video.
पूरे इंडिया में शादी।
Audio, but we don't have the video.
Okay.
वो डैडी पे बिजनेस ऑनलाइन चला, पूरे इंडिया में क्लिक करता जा, भाई का टाइम मत कर, प्लीज तेरी शादी हो गई।
बिजनेस भाई, टाइम निकल रहा है, माल नहीं निकल रहा, दुकान की लोकेशन गलत है क्या?
Okay, you guys can see the, what are you seeing on the screen?
We still see us. Sorry, go ahead, Chirag.
Yeah, sorry, Nikhil. I was just saying we were still seeing the PPT. If you want to just post
okay, so let me go. I'll do a better way. So can you see? Can you see now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we can see now.
Okay, so let me. All right.
बिजनेस भाई मेरी वेडिंग फोटोग्राफी नहीं चल रही है।
लोग शादी नहीं कर रहे क्या प्रजापति?
हर गली में एक शादी फोटोग्राफर है। कंपटीशन बहुत बढ़ गया है भाई।
जूम लगा अपने दिमाग में, अब दिख रहा है?
ओ डैडी,
पूरे इंडिया में शादी क्या सिर्फ तेरे ही शहर में हो रही है प्रजापति? दो डैडी पे बिजनेस ऑनलाइन चला, पूरे इंडिया में क्लिक करता जा, भाई का टाइम मत खा,
प्लीज
तेरी शादी हो गई।
So, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, now let me explain you what goes into an integrated marketing campaign, right? So the objective of this campaign was to create awareness in tier 2 and tier 3 towns, right? So how do we do this, right? And this is really a job of a marketing and an agency combined. We created a relatable character called business bhai. It's not business bhai, but business bhai. Very important to see the differentiation. Now, all of you have traveled to different parts of the country, and when people talk about business, a small dukandar will always say business. So first of all, we wanted to call this character that way people can immediately relate it, right? And that's the one important part of a marketeer or a brand, to say, can they immediately get their attention, right? Because see, these ads are normally 15 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds is the max, right? They're 10 seconders, they're 20 seconders and 30 seconders. And they cost 30 costs more, 20 costs less than. So sometimes we only want to play 10 seconds, right? So how do you get the immediate attention so that Business Bhai name was very important because they were like, we spent weeks on seeing like, what would we call that, right? And what does that mean? It's a fellow small business entrepreneur who has achieved success by using GoDaddy platform. He has had great experience with GoDaddy, reseller and customer support, and makes our audience more aware and comfortable with use of GoDaddy for taking their business online. The other thing about that business by character was that, in every small town, there is somebody people look up to, right? They are the ones they say, "Arey, aapne to business bahut bada diya, hame bhi kuch gyan do," kind of stuff, right? So we wanted that business by character in that. Now, once we figured out this is what we do, who should we use it, right? And you saw obviously MS Dhoni, but leading on to that, we went through a variety of characters, Bollywood, sports, other influencers. And that's a lot of big part of your job to make sure who would represent, because when you select a brand ambassador, they represent your brand, and tomorrow they do something wrong or right, your brand gets reflected, right? You could get both negative or positive appeal out of it. After spending money, if that character does something, you can really ruin your reputation. And then second thing, how far reach does this brand have? So our objective was, hey, we wanted somebody who can relate to the entire India. Now we looked at Bollywood and we looked at all the usual big guys, but most of them are very North India centric, right? A guy in Chennai probably doesn't watch Akshay Kumar's movie. He wants Rajnikant, or he wants the other guys, right? So if we create a campaign, do we select 4 different characters and there are 4 different things going on? Or we try to find somebody, and when we zoomed in, MS Dhoni emerged as the character for us for the following reason, right? One, people really trust him. Second, he comes from a smaller town, right? He has a story of success, coming from Jharkhand and being nobody to being the most successful captain for us. Having that raw feel about that, people can think of him as the business guy, and so on. And lastly, he could be pan-India because of his IPL experience with Chennai. People in South know him and like him. They call him Thela, right? They're North India, of course, and entire India, right? So for us, it was like, okay, here is a character which checks all these boxes, right? Has a high degree of trust, has a high degree of success story by working hard, can cut across entire India, and perhaps will be able to speak in their language. And the language for us was the tier 2, tier 3 markets, right? And so that's how it came about. So you see the authenticity, the relevance, the buzz was very important. And that's how we came. And so, this is how we kind of ended up launching this campaign. And I showed you one video. We had 2 versions. I'll show you the second version, right? So we went on, front of site is our website. So when you're a marketeer, you come up and, start putting these creatives on your website. Then you do, we ask MS Dhoni to use his social handle to talk about our character, which he did on the bottom left. Then we go into, social contest. And, here are the 2 characters. We had a character of twins who just did the pre-launch and so on. So long story short, all these are marketing managers' jobs. So this is the cool stuff, you end up kind of doing in kind of marketing stuff. So, so I think, this is really, a lot of, I would say, work you do with agencies, with directors, your ad advisors and all that stuff, right? So this is kind of cool stuff. The other part, is that once you launch it, you start measuring the impact, which is the performance thing I was talking about, right? How many social impressions? This means how many people, looked at it, like you see 29 million. How many PR impressions? 151 million. How many YouTube views? About 8 million. How many engagements? People put comments, right? 9 million. What was the sentiment rate, which is a positive one, right? And so on. So you start measuring that. The bottom 2 left shows you the PR articles which came out on us. Like for example, our thing was 20 most creative, most fun, ad films of 2018, and then talked about MS Dhoni, right? So this ad won multiple awards because of the authenticity. You see on the right, just the examples of what I was talking about, day in a the life within a day of a marketing manager, right? Print, YouTube, TV, marathon, display, everything, right? So we just used MS, and everywhere we could kind of stuff, right? So if I go back to this, right, you see this is all it covers, right? It all started from like, okay, brand, right? Like what should the brand relate to? Research on that business buy, creative brief, media planning, TV ad, creative is about, okay, yeah, which director, which actor, PR communication, those articles and all that stuff come out, and ultimately, having this kind of this IMC kind of stuff, right? And then you create 2-3 different versions. Now, I will kind of, share this other version. Can you see
Business bhai.
can you see my YouTube screen or no?
Yes, we can see your screen.
You can see the character, right? The YouTube one?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so this was the second version of the same ad, right? So we created two, just so that, one was a hair salon, because that's a typical business we wanted to come online. And this is, this is another small market dukandar.
टाइम निकल रहा है, माल नहीं निकल रहा, दुकान की लोकेशन गलत है क्या?
तेरी नजर गलत है मुरारी, दिख रहा है?
So, here a subtle thing I want to point out. Do you see that GoDaddy on that laptop?
Yeah.
So, so this is marketing, right? You want to talk about your product, but in a subtle way, right? So you have that, you're sitting in front of a laptop. We want to talk about technology, but in a very raw way. And having that on your laptop is important. In the previous ad, if you may have observed, it was on the phone, right? And so you want to also show people, yeah, it's accessible from your phone and accessible from your laptop, right? It's a very subtle but a very important part, because this does carry, people remember this and they say, okay, yeah, there is a character sitting in a dukan, there's a laptop, so it's technology and business, right? Immediately you connect that.
हाँ दिख रहा है।
इधर क्या दिख रहा है?
GoDaddy।
मतलब नजर सही है।
नजर सही है।
विजन में प्रॉब्लम है।
विजन में प्रॉब्लम है।
तो दुकान बेच रहा है या सामान?
अरे क्या बात है।
GoDaddy पे अपना धंधा लेके जाओ ऑनलाइन, कस्टमर को दुकान लेके आ फुल टाइम, भाई का टाइम मत खा।
All right, so let me kind of, I know there's a lot here. I just want to make sure you guys understand, because this is ultimately, an IMC is ultimately in your marketing job, the end product of all the effort you do about a brand and so on, right? So I just wanted to kind of give you a real-time view of what it is, right? I mean, this is, again, we're showing him, MS Dhoni's, so this is another example, like MS Dhoni number is 7, right? He also has a brand called 7. So we said, okay, how do we connect all these two and, kind of put out our brand, which is authentic. So we have the GoDaddy laptop. He's sitting in his 7 store and talking about his brand, right? Same thing here. He's talking about, his brand, but this is all kind of on GoDaddy's website and so on, right? So, but if you have to kind of think about the IMC in a very simplistic way, which is the end product of and dream of every marketing manager, and IMC again is integrated marketing campaign, which means it is all about brand market research, about working with the agencies, selecting the right kind of brand recall, and then building a creative out of that. So any questions, please feel free to ask, because this is a very important part of any marketing job, and this is what you end up creating.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah.
So Pavit here. I just had a question.
Yes.
So I think this would be exclusive to the metro areas. All right. So right now, sir, as we see that, so say in the next 10 years, the people who will be adults will be the largely millennial population, right? And largely we've come to regard ads in a very sort of negative connotation. All right. So the reason why streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon are so popular is because they don't have any adverts. All right. So I think my question is that, do you believe ads will be as effective as you would want them to be, say, in the next 10 years? all right, because there's this growing notion that if it's an ad, you know, we don't want anything to do with it. It will be boring. It will waste our time or something like that.
No, I think it's a great question, and that is, you know, part of my sharing. I'll talk about in future, like, you know, where is the world headed towards the ads, you know, and so, but just to give you a perspective, I don't think the ads would anytime go away. They always will be there. It's just that how people create, right? Like if you look at this ad, right, it's very subtle, it's very humorous, it's a very light-hearted way, but it's not in your face that go buy now kind of a thing, right? So I think there is more viewership happening on ads now, especially on mobile, right? Everybody has access to mobile platforms. And so, you know, it's kind of becoming a lot more popular. Guys, just give me 1 second. Sorry, I just hear a noise in the back. I'm just going to shut it. Yeah. So I think, you know, ads, the platform of where the ads put on, like, for example, I'll give you an example. In COVID, we were not doing much TV because exactly to your point, right? I mean, people are, you know, thinking about very serious issues. So we were not doing much TV at all. But like pre-COVID time, you know, TV does work for building the brand presence, because especially, you know, around when cricket matches are on, or, you know, there's these high views event and so on, right? But where the world's shifting toward is more purpose-driven ads, and I'll talk to you. I'll show you an example of what that is. Since you asked the question, let me share this another way, and this is another job of a marketeer to say, okay, one is this building this very character-driven, fun-driven marketing campaign. The other is to talk about your product through the eyes of your customer, right? A very emotional one. And the one I'm going to play now is exactly that. And that's where I feel the world's moving more and more towards now. So I'll just play this on, and then we kind of talk about your question a little more.
भोपाल में डैड की शूज़ की शॉप है, सेफी कुचिन नाम से। डैड बहुत मेहनत करते हैं इस शॉप में।
अभी ये 2012 में स्कूल जाते थे, स्कूल के बाद थोड़ा सा दुकान में भी बैठते थे सब। अब जूते की लाइन में इतनी कमाई है तो है नहीं, ना धंधे हैं, बस ठीक है जैसा चल रहा है। मैं नहीं चाहता था कि ये दुकान में बैठे, मैं चाहता था जो इनका इंटरेस्ट है वो बना रहे। और तो एक सेकेंड हैंड कंप्यूटर लिया था 10,000 के आसपास का, तो वो 2012 में जलगांव से मंगवाया था इनके लिए।
प्रोग्रामिंग के ट्यूटोरियल्स दिखना चालू किए और वीडियोस बनाना चालू किए। वो वीडियोस और ट्यूटोरियल देख के बहुत सारे भोपाल और इंदौर के स्टार्टअप्स मुझे हेल्प के लिए या ईज़र प्रोजेक्ट्स के लिए रीच करने लगे। जब वो सारी चीज़ें होने लगी तो मैंने सोचा व्हाई डोंट मेक अ वेबसाइट, खुद का एक ब्रांड बनाया जाए। सबसे पहले मेरे दिमाग में GoDaddy आया। ये तो सोच लिया था कंपनी बनाए, लेकिन नाम क्या रखें। दिमाग में सिर्फ ये चीज़ थी कि कुछ टेकी होना चाहिए। GoDaddy पे गए, GoDaddy पे सर्च किया तो GoDaddy के एल्गोरिदम ने हमें हमारा नाम सजेस्ट किया, हैकर करने। तो हमने शुरू किया था तो हम 3 लोग थे, आज हम 25 लोग हैं। उस दिन से भी और आज भी हमारा सिर्फ एक मोटिव है, हम 5 साल के अंदर भोपाल की सबसे बड़ी IT कंपनी बनना चाहते हैं। हमारे जितने भी क्लाइंट हैं सारों को GoDaddy से कुछ ना कुछ लेना ही पड़ता है, या तो डोमेन ले लो, या होस्टिंग ले लो, या SSL ले लो। अब आप बोलोगे खाली GoDaddy ही क्यों? उसका रीज़न ये है, उनका जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वो विद इन बजट है। विद इन बजट आने के बाद उनकी जो कस्टमर सपोर्ट है वो A1 है। आई एम GoDaddy वेब प्रो।
So, you know, this is a very much putting out your brand and marketing through customer stories, right? And that's where I think to the question asked, right? I feel like this is where now, because people are really looking for that purpose driven, emotional driven kind of connect out there. So when you are a marketing brand manager, this is your other job, to find customer stories, right, which are very powerful stories, and then put them out in a way which is not like, oh yeah, look what this guy did by using GoDaddy. If you see the film, right, GoDaddy is very subtle in it, right? It's very much either he mentions about it, or at the end we show our logo, but it's not about an ad in that sense, right? It is a story, and so it's a story about somebody who was resilience, and so the marketing manager's job is to really bring those stories out, and so on. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question here? I mean, I know we have 20 minutes left, but I just want to make sure, these are end products of what a marketing manager does. So I just want to make sure I spend enough time so you guys have enough chance to kind of, ask anything or any doubt you have on any of the lingo I may be using, right? Because remember, in my day job, I'm got so used to using these, and I understand, you all are just coming out of school. So any other questions there?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the IMC strategy, you spoke about the tier 1 and tier 2 markets. So can you please elaborate?
Yes. You want me to explain the difference? Yeah. So, tier 1 market is very much the Delhi, the Mumbai, the Chennai, the I would say the more sophisticated markets, which are like, think of the capitals of the states, right? You got Delhi here, you got Mumbai, you got Chennai, you got Bangalore, those kinds. Tier 2, tier 3 are the smaller places, right? Like the Punes of the world, and then Nasik, right? Or Nagpur, Chandigarh, and then beyond Chandigarh, right? I mean, Rajkot, right? Kind of stuff. And so when you start going into the interior of the company, which is very much, I would say, like English kind, right? Tier 1 markets are English, right? Tier 2 is more English. English means if you're in a UP, a little bit of a Hindi English one, and you go further into tier 3, it's all Hindi. So that's where the way the customer there understands it is very different than the way a customer understands in kind of a tier 1 market. The way they make a decision, right? Like for example, a person who relates to a message in South India will relate it in a very different way than in South India. But tier 2, tier 3 is like, for example, today the projection is the next 200 million internet users are going to come from tier 2, tier 3 market, and they will be non-English speaking in the next 5 years. So imagine if you're a brand and you are a marketing manager, how do you tap into that, right? There are 200 million people who are going to come on the internet. None of them will speak English. And so they will be in the tier 2, tier 3 market. So how do you build a campaign, which can relate to them? Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sonia, any other question, or I can move on to?
No, you can move on.
Okay. The other job of a marketing manager is also you take sponsorships of some of the events, right? So I'm just showing these examples. This is again a way to promote the brand, right? So this is kind of the World Cup, and GoDaddy was a sponsor. So
I was just actually getting to this. I was hoping you were going to touch upon this campaign. It was amazing.
Yeah. So the reason we did this campaign was we said, okay, how many people watch World Cup? 2 billion people. How many Indians watch World Cup? Almost 1 billion people. So if we have our brand out there, I mean, what is the one way to reach 1 billion people in a matter of 4 weeks? And so this is the reason we said, okay, this is a great way to build brand presence, especially again in smaller tier 2, tier 3 markets, because cricket is watched by everybody, right? And then we have Dhoni as a brand, right? So this is MS Dhoni, and there's GoDaddy, and we said, oh, this will be a perfect combination, right? And that was supposed to be MS Dhoni's last World Cup. We'll find out, but but for us, the attention on MS Dhoni would have been huge. Then the GoDaddy brand is out there, so so you get involved in all these kind of sponsorships in different way, and then we ran campaigns around around using World Cup and MS Dhoni. So these are all social media campaigns. You run some contest. you do some other stuff, around kind of, for example, if you see on the right, we said, hey, tournament pe World Cup jao. We gave people an opportunity to kind of, win a ticket. And then we said, okay, let's wish, kind of GoDaddy, let's wish Mahi, good luck and so on. So these are kind of some of the examples. I know I have 15 minutes. One video I do want to also show you is so brand is not only, a marketing job is not only external. Now, primarily it's external, but there is an internal component of it to say, how do you make sure your employees also relate to your brand? And they feel equally proud, because see, if your team members are equally proud, then they will go out and promote that, right? So when you are a marketing manager, you make sure you bring your campaigns internally also. So I'll show you a video where we said MS Dhoni was our brand, right? So we want to put this marketing out there, but we also want our employees to feel good. And so we brought MS Dhoni into the company and really did what we would do with our customers, right? People do these events and call their customers. Very few companies end up not doing that for the employees, but it's very important as a job of a marketeer to make sure that you are making your employees equally excited as your customers. So I'll just show you a quick video of when we had called MS Dhoni into our office, and how our employees and everybody got so excited. See what happens, outcome is people started posting about it. Like GoDaddy is a great company. GoDaddy, got us to meet MS Dhoni. Yeah, that's all virality, right? And that creates a positive brand sentiment. So let me just play this video quickly. Here, again, you remember we are bringing the business by again to making sure you're reinforcing with your employees as well. So, again, that is marketing internally, which is the equal important part of a marketing manager's job as externally. So this is a long video. I won't play all of it, but I'll just play like, a minute or so you get a flavor of it.
Mahi has been GoDaddy's brand ambassador for the last 12 months in the avatar of Business Bhai. So if you think of business, right, it's all about being a leader. It's all about knowing your competition and market so you can make the right decisions. And it's all about different platforms, different scenarios require different kind of trainings. And you're going to hear these interactions with Mahi in the next few minutes. All of us remember the 2007 World Cup, the last ball victory we had, and the last over given to Joginder Sharma. And we asked Mahi what was going through his head and what was his basis of actually deciding who should bowl the last over. So here's his perspective on what made him decide to give that last over to Joginder Sharma.
So I will send this link of the video. I know everybody is curious about the answer, so I wanted to leave it at that. But I will send this video. It is public, so all of you can watch it. It has 3-4 great questions with Mahi kind of stuff, right? But the interest of time, I will move on now to the question which was asked earlier by the gentleman about it was leading on to purpose, right? So I think a brand really has to now become very purposeful, and this will go into the latest trend, right? Purpose-driven branding. Given where we are in the world right now, right? I mean, so I'll give you a great brand example right now. I don't know how many of you are following Sonu Sood, right? As a brand, he's created suddenly, that's all a great, I would say, a brand builder, right? He's gotten involved with every cause out there, helping daily wage laborers get on a bus and get to their homes, right? And suddenly now you see Sonu Sood, his brand value has gone up 10x. If you go and check Instagram, there's like every campaign he's doing with different companies, right? So he was doing it for a purpose where he's helping people in need, but he's come out as the most strongest brand now, kind of 10xing his value, right? So as a marketing manager, the world where it's moving towards, having a purpose-driven message and purpose-driven association is very important. Like, so for example, we at GoDaddy, right, we got involved in raising funds for for some of these daily labors in Rajasthan. We're just launching another campaign on Tuesday, where we are creating a platform for small businesses to raise money if they don't have money to pay their employees. We've done stuff here at the Delhi government where we started going out and feeding people. So these are things where you don't put out, look what I'm doing as GoDaddy, I'm feeding people and so on. No, that's not the right way to do as a marketing manager. But you are subtly being a good corporate citizen. So as a job of a marketing manager or brand manager is to create that that association in the mind of consumer that this brand is just not about money. This brand is just not about just kind of selling his product or her product. It's about really kind of doing good for the customers and doing good for the community, which is what all is. So if I see where the latest trend would move towards, it very much will be purpose driven branding. And you will see now, you just watch any ad, everybody's talking about some purpose and how it's relating to their brand, right? You see these hand sanitizers ad, right? That's all purpose driven, right? The purpose is, hey, stay, keep your hands clean so you don't get COVID, right? Ads about any, look at Akshay Kumar's ad, right? He's talking about, some health products and everything, right? And even if you're not in the category of health products, every brand is talking about, like, so for example, GoDaddy, right? We are talking about, hey, all shops are shut, but how do you continue your business? We know times are tough. So the best way is to come online, right? And we'll help you and so on, right? So if you start with a story in marketing about the customer and then build your campaign on that, you kind of get a lot more success out of it. And so futuristically, a lot of purpose driven branding will be there. A lot of mission means like, why are we doing this? Like, hey, drink Coca-Cola. No, like, why are you doing Coca-Cola, right? It's more getting into the story, right? And so same thing for GoDaddy, right? I mean, why do you want to come online, right? Hey, you don't just buy a website for the sake of it, because we will be in the lockdown period, right? We'll be in the lockdown period. So you need to have your business keep going. You have to keep your business going. You have to pay your employees. So how can we help in that journey, right? So build that, right? Like as we speak, we are making a video on one of the doctors whose clinic got shut. Then he opened and he helped, 15, 20 people, kind of beat COVID, right? Very powerful story, all through building a website. Now, so we want to tell his story. We want to, put him in the front and put ourselves in the back. But, that's really the art of being a good marketing manager, right? That how do you kind of do that? So I know, Sonia, we've got 8 minutes. So I want to leave some time for questions, or I can dig into any topic, people want to kind of go into. So let me know if there's anything on the chat or there is any topic out of this, right? This is a good setup to go into detail of any of these.
Hello, sir. This is Yadunandan.
Hi.
I say, if we talk about FMCGs where there's a lot of competition amongst the companies, so how do a marketing manager brand a product to stand out of the crowd? Like if you're talking about biscuits, there are a lot of every company like ITC and Sunfeast are making biscuits. How do we stand out of all of them?
Yeah, great question, right? I mean, I think the first thing is, again, this influencer driven, mission driven campaigns are very powerful, right? If you're a biscuit company, you gave me a great example, right? I mean, the other day I was out on the road and, in front of one of the shops, somebody came out and they had Parle-G and they were feeding the stray dogs, right? I mean, if you make a campaign, something like that, imagine the power of that ad, right? That what you're doing in tough time is you're feeding these stray dogs with a biscuit, which is keeping them alive. But the biscuit happens to be Parle-G, right? So I think if you're an FMCG company, I think going into these very emotional ways of, how this product is changing lives and less about, hey, you eat and you feel good. I think that's the way in my mind, which is the way forward, right? And we are going deep into that also, right? I mean, we are trying to look at every campaign now, which is going to be very much, kind of purpose driven, right? And if you happen to have a brand ambassador, right? And like we have Mahi too, right? We are doing work with him, and we're not talking about it publicly, but about like basically helping kind of people in need, right? So that's the way to differentiate if you're in that category or any category right now, right? Versus you go out and say, oh yeah, look, wonderful, my product is the best, highest in quality, highest in this, highest in that. That's not going to work in the current one, right? So I think the key here is bring out a very purpose, emotional story in your marketing messages. And use social media also, right? Because you have a lot of influencers now, and the power of social media also is great if you use the right way, because you can others can talk about, people post pictures, people talk about the brand. Look, the pictures speak 1,000 words sometimes, because if you have a picture where dogs are being fed, the biscuit happens to be Parle G, think of the virality you get out of that, right? I mean, totally different example, but like last year when the World Cup final happened, which was, which went into kind of the overtime and then ultimately super over, our brand happened to be playing on the boundary line, and we got so many pictures all around the world which live in memory even today, right? So being in that moment when there is something happening is important, and today the moment is people are in trouble. So how can we help people? That should be the first objective, and our brand happens to be the person who's helping. And so there's nothing bad in having your brand out there, but in a way which is first the problem we are trying to solve, and then the brand, right? So I think of this dog Parle G example, which is a great one to kind of build upon.
Nikhil, there is a question in the chat from Danush. Why do you feel that customer empathy ads are likely to be more successful in the future when compared to a humorous ad?
Yeah, good question, Dhanush. I think I wouldn't say like, when I say more successful, the reason is the following, right? Next 18 months, it's going to be a tough period, right? No matter what for the world. And there are a lot of businesses a lot of people who are losing jobs, a lot of people, small businesses are going out of, work. People are going to be, not in good shape financially. So when you put very much of the traditional, fun ads, which always work, by the way, and will continue to work, but, you have to look at the current period and you say, okay, the current period is all about customer empathy. And, the customer thinks, are you understanding what I'm going through, right? And when they see that, they will be loyal to you forever, because they will recognize that, this brand really gets my current state. I can go to a small business and say, hey, here's my package of products, buy it. And the customer look at it, look, man, I don't even have a dime to pay to my employees, and you're coming here to tell me to, sell a box of this. And so I think that's why the customer empathy is very critical now in the next 18 months, or at least 12 to 18 months, because that's where the world is. And so build your marketing around it. After that, let's say the vaccine comes, the humorous ads will be back in action. So they will not go away. I would say it's just a current phase where empathy is important. And then I would say coexist empathy with humorous ads, because both will always coexist, and it's important for both of them to coexist.
Thank you.
So I don't know if there's any other question, or I can do a closing stuff. I don't see anything, right, Sona?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, just to kind of sum it up, I think the career and marketing brand communication is super fun. What you need to know if you want to pursue is that, it's very creative. It is very, it's both data and kind of subjective. Needs, a lot of outside focus, because you're connecting to customers always. And, most important thing is you represent the company, right? Whatever you do in that job is what people think of the company. So in that sense, it is an exciting job, but it's also a very responsible job, right? But on the fun side, you get to do all these fun, creative things, TV ads, display, and all that stuff and so on. And I'll conclude that if you guys want to get any example, here's my social media handles. You know, I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up, but on Insta. And so I keep posting examples of what we do at GoDaddy on my both handles. So you can get some great examples. And also GoDaddy India Facebook page is pretty active. So with that, you know, if you have any questions, please send it to the ISBF team. I'm happy to help. Hopefully it gave you some preview into what a marketing brand communication job looks like. And I'm happy to, you know, answer any question in the future if you have any doubts.